Hello.
Hello. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Nice. So I noticed I have coached you before. You want to give myself and the viewers like a brief refresher on, what happened last time and what we're here for now?
Last session, well, a carry player, so we watched a carry replay. I was playing PA,
Okay.
and you found out big issues with like pressuring heroes when my team was fighting as like
Oh, I
four.
remember this. I remember this session. Okay.
Use
So
Twitch
we
Prime to
talked a lot
subscribe
about
your
like
kid.
basically addressing what the enemy does when they five man
Yeah,
or what you do when the enemy five mans. Okay, I remember this session. Okay. So what was your MMR last time? What's your MMR now? And what's the
I
deal?
was just hit 5.2 then, and
Okay.
I'm almost 5.5 now.
Nice. Okay. So I was, I always cross my fingers saying, please don't say a lower number on the new
I mean,
value.
I lost a lot after it, but came back up.
That's actually expected. I actually generally say like in the short term, you're trying to compensate for things you're not used to dealing with, and then, um, which makes you fuck up in ways that you're not used to, and
Yeah.
then in the long term, it should pay off. So that's not surprising. That's kind of expected. So, do you feel like that's what happened, basically, or
Yeah, I mean, it was just like what you taught me. It ended up getting me thinking about other things. So like, you know what I mean?
yeah?
It
And
just kind of spiraled into a whole bunch of stuff to think about.
okay, I got you. Cause yeah, that is natural. Like since you are like at a high enough level, that you'll start noticing things that I pointed out to you that I didn't even like, or that like the things that I pointed out to you will start making you notice things that I didn't even talk about. So
Yeah.
that definitely happens naturally. That happens with like a lot of high level players. So, okay, so what are we here for today?
I have some Spectre replays that I wanted to talk
Spectre.
about.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hero I learned last year, or like felt like I had to actually learn to understand last year. So cool. Uh, she's a very against my playstyle type of hero.
Yeah. What actually started happening to me? I gained like 700 MMR in like the span of 2 months,
Okay.
and then I started losing a whole bunch once I like reached like 5K.
Okay.
I felt like it was because I was kind of using the fact that I could just like rotate to the enemy team's safe lane and just kill these bad players.
Okay.
Like I was using it as a crutch because like they weren't. I shouldn't even be allowed to kill them. And then what happened is I got to like 5K and people were punishing me
And
with like
people suddenly
rotating mid
weren't
lane.
randomly feeding to you anymore.
Yeah, or like
Okay.
they would just like rotate their mid hero and I would just feed with the offlaner.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's actually. I mean, that's why I talk about the game and like. Let me know if you see Dota. You see Dota, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's like why I talk about the game and like rules and exceptions because if the rule is that you go to the safe lane in every game and you learn that like the opponent's safe lane, and then suddenly you realize there are exceptions, right? Like there are reasons. Like if you consider the mid laner counterplaying you, or you consider like the fact that the opponent might have ward vision, or that the opponent carry is 2 levels ahead of you. There was like one game where I was PA against Jug, and I'm like, oh, like, this is a good matchup. I'm ready to like TP onto the Jug. And lo and behold, he was level 8 and I was level 6, and the guy just spun and killed me. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, I should definitely look at the hero levels before I do that. So it's just like it's just interesting stuff like that. That it's like sometimes you don't consider like that there are drastic scenarios where if you don't account for a certain thing, because like usually at that stage in the game, both carries will be similar farm, but in that specific instance, he was like way more farm than I was. But since I didn't check the levels, then I didn't know. So like from then on, I learned I have to check these levels, otherwise like I could miss some important detail I didn't see. So same thing with that in terms of like mid laner counter gank potential is incredibly important. Like how that affects you. Like, well, if I force this hero to TP on me, and where is the line that I draw? Where if I cross that line and he TPs, I still die. You know what I mean? Like it's enough to just kill me. So heroes like PL are really good at that understanding because PL has like kind of a very fine line where you can force people to react, but if you cross it, you're just gonna feed because you're um what Kyle calls peel potential, like your ability to run away, is like a very finite number, and it's like about his doppelganger. So it's like in certain scenarios you can get away, but in other scenarios you just can't. So knowing where that line is on a hero like that is really important. But okay, so let's see what happens here. Offlane Lycan, interesting.
Yeah. I this lane like fucked me up. I don't know. I told Pudge we shouldn't try lane, but he just was Pudge. So this
Yeah.
whole lane, I actually had no idea what we were doing,
Okay.
which is pretty like I try to avoid that as much as I can, and most of the time I don't get tri lanes or pudge. Often like
Yeah, we'll worry about things as they go. Like, I know there are some times where you just get random shit in your lane and you have to try to adjust as great as possible. I'll just talk about anything I see that is alarming. So you have a tri lane. Important thing to consider is that your off laner is probably going to have a pretty shit start. With tri lanes, it's pretty important to keep the lane equilibrium. Obviously, your supports had the job of preventing that pull, and they didn't, so that's not good, but there's nothing you can do about that, so no reason to worry. So, like, there's stuff that's gone wrong in this lane, but none of it's on you, so I'm just not gonna worry about it.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Generally, silence is good. Like, pretty standard stuff going on so far. Looked for the pull, that was good. Wasn't there, obviously, but once Lycan gets 6, we do have to be a little bit concerned, but until then, you're pretty much under no threat, so. Okay, look for the counterplay mid. It's good.
Dire's structures are fortified. Radiant structures are fortified. Dire are scanning.
Yeah, I do remember last time where your decision making past this stage is what kind of broke down. So I think you've kind of proven that up until this point, at least in this replay, that you know your decision early is pretty straightforward. Like it looks pretty good so far. Spectre is kind of a hero that just chills in her own lane until she gets pushed out. So since it has not happened yet, it's pretty standard. On a hero like this, I just ask myself, you know, when are they going to push me out? What's the situation required for them to push me out? And because Spectre and anti-mage type heroes generally get bullied out of their lane at like some point, but if it's not happening, I'm just going to keep chilling up here and look to do exactly what you're doing. So far so good. Natural rotation to the bottom lane, Pugno in top.
Dire's top tower has fallen.
it's like at this scenario where like a couple weeks ago, honestly, I would have a big like I would honestly for some reason think that the game was like over because when I go bottom there, the Pugna's already top and takes my safe lane tower.
Okay.
And I don't like we can't just go 5 bottom. So we can only really just like play passively from here on out as like a whole team, right?
I mean, that's pretty much how Spectre goes always. Like, what I've realized, like, the problem for me is I was very similar in the sense that, like, if they got more towers than I did, I always felt, like, really uncomfortable. But the fact of the matter is, you have a Pangolier, a Spectre, a Pudge, and a Disruptor. And Viper is, like, a hero that, like, pushes lanes and, like, can enable tower pushing, but Viper himself does not actually kill the tower, right? So, like, in this kind of game, they have Lycan Pugna, like, and you guys have that. So you're gonna lose towers. And so this is something where you have to like, I hate it in my bracket when I have players that are kind of panicking in this type of spot when I'm like, dude, look at the fucking heroes. We're gonna be down towers 99% of the games. I feel like if we're not down towers right now, the game's over. Meaning, like, we won, right? Like, we've won already if we're not down towers at this point in the game. So it's really important to, like, know that that's, like, the general atmosphere of a certain hero. Meaning, like, on Spectre, that's probably going to happen. It's just, like, for me, the way I look at it is, it's like, how much should that happen? Like, should we be down 4 towers? Should we be down 2 towers? Like, you know, how badly are we going to be down in towers? I know I'm going to be down in towers because I'm a Spectre, but how much am I going to be down? A hero like Spectre, the whole concept of the hero is that she's like fending off the opponent, and then eventually like with like these ult counter ganks in the meantime farming, and like extending the game enough where like the enemy team's always going to be the one making plays most of the time. But like if you guys counterplay them enough, you're eventually going to be strong enough where they can't do anything, and then you just fight them on your terms, and then you win the game, right? Like that's usually how Spectre works. So it's just important, like, is that you should feel comfortable in this scenario, and I think walking top here is absolutely correct. You didn't have Haunt, and you know that the fight's going to be bottom, so you walked top with the TP ready, and you're watching, but you're not TPing. This is exactly correct. Like, so far, I'm very happy with what you're doing. The thing about Spectre, when you like choose to rotate to the opponent's safe lane like you did, you're going to have situations where they take your tower like they did, and you're just not going to get anything. And that's like the sad reality of playing heroes like Spectre. It just happens that way, where like you make rotations and you go for a trade, but there's actually just no trade. This is like because you're a Spectre. So
It's bad.
yeah, that's why I struggled in the past, because I tried to do shit. I tried to do shit that like wasn't in the capability of my hero. And so this is a situation where you're kind of like the Medusa that I was talking about in the last coaching session. If you're watching it at all, you are just playing between your mid and bottom lane, or mid and top lane, like you are, and you're looking to potentially TP or ult for counterplays. And it looks like your team's just kind of feeding while this is happening, and I don't think you can solo defend against Lycan. So I think like losing that tower, maybe you could have done a little bit more about it, but I think it's pretty reasonable that like if your team's doing what they're doing, like feeding, that you're probably just going to lose buildings for free against a hero like Lycan when you're Spectre, because it's just not in your capability to defend this.
I guess I just kind of wasted my TP there mid then.
I think the TP mid was actually fine, because somebody had to clear that, and because they were fighting bottom, you TPing mid and then walking back top is not actually punishable. So the times where TPing mid would be really bad is if they weren't like heavily fighting here, because if you TP'd and then walked top, you're like pinned, right?
I see.
So in this case, because they can't really punish your pin, like you being pinned, like the way they would punish it would be like to TP top and run at you, but in that case, you'd like clear one wave and like walk back this way, right? So like you have a play. So last time I remember, you were like kind of forcing weird spots for yourself where like if the opponent ran at you or whatever, or like if they wanted to fight you, you had like no better option. And so in this case, like the reason why I don't mind that TP run back top is, as a carry hero like Spectre, you are pretty much cleanup duty. Like you're enabling your team to fight and use your ultimate by making it so they don't have to defend lanes. Like that's what your hero does, because your hero doesn't create tower pressure, and you're also like pretty survivable. So they don't really need to help you for the most part defend towers. And if they're defending towers, you're not going to do anything else on the map, so then nothing's happening, right? So you are doing like what your hero is supposed to be doing. It's just a matter of like, I'd have to watch closely from like the other player's perspective, but like I'm just watching this game back from your perspective, and every decision thus far has seemed like reasonable. Like it's just like you're a hero that doesn't really do anything. Like you help your team do stuff pretty much, and if your team's not really capable, or they're misplaying and not actually doing stuff, you're kind of just gonna be stuck in this situation. This might be weird to say, but I might actually have virtually nothing to say from this game. I think this is an unwinnable game from your perspective. Like
I have another Spectre replay.
yeah, I don't say that lightly, but I believe I'm going to cut this off to make sure we get as much out of this coaching session as possible, because I think you actually played that very reasonably in every circumstance. I don't remember the last time I said that in a coaching session, so I don't say that lightly. That's literally a game where the game's over before your hero is supposed to have impact, and during the time that your hero was weak, like you were actually doing the appropriate things. You weren't like unnecessarily showing up to fights. You weren't like AFKing where your team needed your help. Like you actually showed up to stuff. You got some kills, and you just lost. So, this is another Spectre replay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens sometimes on like Spectres, Anti-Mages, Arc Wardens, these types of heroes. Like sometimes your team just fucks up to the point where you don't actually have time to contribute. So I think it is important though to like have confirmation that your decisions were correct. So I think that's still useful, but at the same time, make sure we move on to the next game here. So a little bit tougher of a lane, I'd say, than last game. Meaning that you weren't given tri-lane free farm. To be clear, what I think really happened that game, just something to prevent, if possible to prevent, like, guiding your supports, was letting them get this pull off pretty much secured the Lycan having some semblance of a game. And since you guys tri-laned and that guy got a semblance of a game, the pace of the game was, like, way too fast for your team to deal with. So, like, if that Lycan had been pretty much useless, like he should have been against a tri-lane, then you probably would have had time to be impactful. But the reason why I didn't really harp on it that much is it is on your supports in that circumstance to not let this happen, but they did. So maybe in the future, if you're tri-laning, you can try to look out for, like, saying, calling out that pull camp. But that's honestly, like, in your laning stage, that was, like, the only impact you could really have, which is, like, kind of sad. And that's why I generally don't like playing passive laners, because I am reliant upon my teammates to stop the appropriate things. So, okay, so you are doing okay here. Let's see here. You walk over to pull the next wave. This is good. Fast forwarding.
Structures are fortified.
I'll rewind for a bit there. I think that might just be a reasonable death, but let's see. They've kind of been whittling you down for a while.
I
Okay.
think from what I remember here, for some reason I thought Inkswell was on cooldown.
Okay. So I think the major thing I see here is that you kind of just have to learn to expect what's happening. I'm sure you know they're looking to be aggressive on you, right?
Yeah, with the catapult.
Like, you know that. So with this catapult, it's like, the best way I view this right now is I say, okay, I know they're going to be aggressive with the catapult. I have to defend this tower. Like, they're not strong enough to, like, bully me away from this tower, but, like, I do need to defend it. What do I need to defend it? So in this case, I would legitimately walk over to the shrine and TP back to my tower. Like, full health, full mana, and, like, prevent this from happening. I think the only thing you should have done here better is, like, have a higher sense of urgency. Like, you clearly know what's coming. Like, now address it properly. Like, so the first step is knowing what's coming. The second step is, like sometimes I'll say, yeah, I don't need full health, full mana to deal with this or whatever. Or I don't need this to deal with this. And then you realize, oh, I really did need boots in order to defend this tower. Or I did need full health, full mana in order to defend this tower. So in this case, like, you actually had to make a very split-second decision to go to the shrine here. And you probably take a bit of tower damage, but like, there's nothing you can do about that, right? But your tower is full health. So you should just TP back full health, full mana. And even if they make the same play, you'll walk away with this much health rather than being dead. So
That makes sense.
even though you, like, did make the gauging, like, the educated decision that they had Inkswell on cooldown, you know they're going to be aggressive. Now let's make sure we counterplay properly and to like put ourselves in the spot to have as good of a chance to counterplay. So okay, fast forwarding so far, doing a good job with the single pulls.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack. Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
I pretty much
at this
wouldn't be
point-
laning against this guy at all, by the way. But go ahead, what were you saying?
At this point, I remember I was just begging my team. I was pinging. I'm so close to my ulti. Can we please just do something? And they
Okay.
were like running to my lane for some reason.
Okay.
Even though I said
So
it, I just want to go somewhere else.
So, I think I've had this personal experience. It seems like a lot of your issues do kind of overlap with what I've had in the past. Is if you tell your team to do stuff when it's not your job to dictate whether or not they do stuff, it does actually create issues. So, like, what I mean by that is you can update them that your ultimate's up soon, but nothing else should be really said by you. Like, it's your job to let them know that you have an ability that would enable them to do something, but it's not your job to tell them to do something. Does that, like, make sense? Or
Yeah.
no? So like you want them to know they have the follow up of your ulti, but it's on them to decide whether or not your ulti will like help them do something. So what I mean by this is if you do the thing where you tell them to do something, generally speaking, they'll just try to force something, and since they're forcing something, it kind of just happens randomly, which is like in this example is like running at your lane. You know, like they're not gonna make like an educated play.
I see.
They're just gonna do something, right? So it's really important to have that kind of discipline. It's like it is a factor when it comes to MMR, and it also helps you if you're ever trying to be a competitive carry player, where you want to update people on the status, but it is important to understand whether it is your hero's job to make something happen. Because in competitive, the problem I've had in the past on these like tier 3 teams is one, you have players that make the mistake like I've made where you try to make something happen because you're not making something happen. The balance in Dota is like you need the guys that are supposed to make something happen to be vocal about making stuff happen. I'm sure you've heard about teams like having that conundrum of like having this player that doesn't make calls when they're the player that's when they're playing the hero that's supposed to make calls. So like it's also it goes the opposite way. You just can't make calls when you're the one that's supposed to. So the way I'm looking at this situation, like level-headed third person perspective, is we don't really want to lane against Terrorblade, but it's better than Doom, I would say. Like, I think that's a far better situation than being against Doom. And so I don't really want to lane top anymore. Let my support take top. So I'm in the spot where I have two choices. I either jungle or I lane bottom. So it's up to you at the end of the day to make that decision. But I know I can't really walk up against this Doom. And I don't really want to contest him directly. So I shouldn't call for a play to be made. I should just say, I don't want to lane top anymore. I have ultimate. That should be like my degree of communication. And when it comes down to communication for your team, are you the most important hero on your team? Would you say?
I mean, right.
In terms of like
overall,
making sure
probably.
you get farm?
Am I the most? Say it again.
So when in my 5 position sessions, I talk to like the guy basically saying, if I want to get farm, I have to consider first if my carry's taken care of, my mid laner's taken care of, my off laner's taken care of. Are you the highest on this totem pole this game of who matters for farm?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this type of circumstance, you communicate your status, but you go to the lane that's best for you, period. Like, you have to ask yourself, is mid lane best for me? Is bottom lane best for me? Like, is top lane best for me? And you just fucking go there. And I don't care if you're dual laning with some other core. Like, it doesn't matter. If there's no other lane for you to go to, go there. And that's like a really important thing to understand, that you are the highest on this totem pole. So you're in the spot where communicate that you're able to do something, but then figure out for yourself what is the best lane for you. So I'm perfectly fine if you want to go bottom. Like, you don't need to let this Oracle take support. But I think by playing top and then telling your team to do something, literally the only thing that's going to happen is in their mind, they see a Doom and they're going to go to him.
I guess that makes sense.
Like, think about it, right? Like, that's exactly what's going to happen. So when I'm a Spectre, this is what I've realized. It's actually, it's something that dawned on me maybe a year ago, is if I'm a hero that is avoiding fights. So Spectre's not a hero that's avoiding fights in the sense that you don't want to fight. You're avoiding fights in the sense that you don't want the fight to come to you, right? Like, That's not what you want to happen. So if you play on the part of the map where the opponent hero is likely to be the one making plays, guess where you're going to end up? You're going to end up in a fight, right? Like, that's how I look at it. So if I went to this Warlock Terrorblade lane, yeah, maybe the Terrorblade metas and takes my tower, but there's not going to be a fight with a not level 6 Warlock and a meta Terrorblade, right? That's not going to be a fight. So
yeah.
that's like a really important understanding to have on a hero like Spectre. So I realized to myself that I was getting like, if I was playing like anti-mage and specters and stuff, that like I was like so annoyed that my teammates were forcing fights around me. And I later realized that the fights being forced around me were actually because I was fighting on the part of the map my teammates would want to fight in. So that's just something that is something you can consider for yourself in future. Obviously, this time around it ended up being a fight, but it kind of just ended up being some awkward rotation of 3 heroes to top lane. So in this case, counter ganked mid, rotated to bottom. Spectre's a hero that doesn't really rotate to bottom like proactively. She kind of reactively TP's bottom, right? Or goes bottom. And I think this is a good example of like the reason why you weren't top was because Doom was there. You force Doom to TP bottom, you immediately go top. This is all good. This is very good. There's a reason why this stuff is working, right? Like this is
Yeah. I was literally playing this game like a month ago. I was playing Juggernaut versus Weaver, and
Yeah.
I was owning. I'm like so far ahead on Juggernaut, and I rotate to this Weaver lane, thinking I'm gonna take his tower. And I just wasted like 5 minutes
Yep.
in this guy's lane.
And you
And then I
realize that.
eventually, throughout the game, figured out I needed to hit this guy's like tier 3 bottom for him to TP.
Yeah, and then go
after
there.
he TP'd, I took his tier 1.
Exactly.
It just took
Exactly.
me forever to figure that
Yeah,
out.
but that's why like certain problems are dealt like remember last time how when we talked about team fighting and stuff, like when the opponent groups up, the decision you had was addressing it directly or indirectly. So like when that Doom was in your lane and that's a problem, I think you learned in this game like the way you deal with that problem was by forcing him elsewhere and then going back to there.
Yeah.
And so you did it very well here, and it panned out very well for you. So I'm actually gonna rewind because I was listening to you and talking, so I want to make sure I'm like keeping up mentally with like what's happening in this game. So you don't have Haunt, 30 seconds. You buy drums. We see Warlock top. We know he's 6. Oracle's soaking levels bottom. Okay. So
Radiant's middle tower
we end up leaving top. I think that's a pretty good awareness thing because you know that the next play by the opponent is probably going to be top. They have a level 6 Warlock. And he was top. And obviously it's just like the nature of top lane. So then we walk back bottom after a fight. Pretty equal trade overall. We take the tower. This is good. We force reactions and TP out. Okay. So in this case, I would immediately walk back towards bottom. And if you don't feel like you can occupy the lane, then I would jungle until I feel like I can. So this is reasonable. Maybe not ideal in the sense that, you know, you took like half your health and damage, but you forced heroes bottom. Now you go top. This is pretty much the idea of Spectre. You have to open up spaces on the map for yourself indirectly. That's like a skill I had to learn. Like, I didn't realize that's how it went. But so far, this has been good. Okay, so... maybe an unnecessary haunt, but at the end of the day, like... that's going to come down to split-second decision-making, so I'm not going to really worry about trying to coach that. I think all that really matters here is, like, you know this tower is dead, and you know this tower is dead, so it's unlikely that a 5v5 is going to break out around no objectives. So that's just, like, something to consider where, like, make sure you're reminding yourself in regards to, like, that 5-man thing we talked about last time, where it's likely that 5-man stuff is going to occur. So, like, right now, I would think it's going to be here or Roche.
Yeah.
Would pretty much where I would think 5-manning is occurring, right? Because you're a counterplay hero, we're really only thinking about the opponent's plays, not our plays. So, in this case, it's going to be Rocher here. So when, like, a guy's, like, right here, like, yeah, you can haunt and get the kill or whatever, but I would definitely be more hesitant to haunt there because now your haunt's on cooldown, and if they want to go for these objectives, you've definitely hindered that. You know, like, your ability of your team to actually contest them. So now that you, like, can't contest them, now this kind of happens. So this is like your best, what you are doing now is your best response to what is happening. But to be frank, what's happening is because of what you did, right? So in the situation, go ahead.
I feel like that like haunt that I did mid is fine if it's like early game, but we're at the point where they
Yes.
can just run at us now.
Okay, so you have 2 chimes that it's fine. So it's fine if it's in the early game. And it's fine if you guys are in a desperate position where a kill is, like, the best you can hope for. Right? So, the reason why I'm emphasizing objectives is because at this point in the game, your haunt or, like, these big ultimates, like if you're a Void with Chrono, like, randomly chronoing someone in their own jungle that's, like, a support, that's actually bad, right? Even if you solo kill the guy. Because it doesn't accomplish an objective, and now if the opponent had an objective that they wanted to go for, they can go for it. So, like, when I'm a Spectre, all I'm thinking about, ideally speaking, is that I want to think about what objectives the opponents would go for, and I'm realizing that my haunt is like a barrier, right, for them to take those objectives. So if they're not threatening those objectives, I have to be really careful about the haunt. I think that haunt would have been fine if they showed 4 heroes on that guy, right? Like if they presented their threat on Necro or whoever it was to be like 4 heroes, but all you saw was one hero that was like out of position, and I think it would be better for that guy to live than you to have used your haunt, right? Like that's
Yeah,
what
to
I'm
play
trying.
correctly.
Yeah, so that's it's overall has to do with objectives, right? Like you're using your haunt because at the end of the day, are you content if nothing's happening in this game?
Yeah.
Yes. And so if you're content nothing's happening in the game, then all you need to concern yourself with is the opponent's objectives and how your hero's toolkit has to deal with those objectives. And then also like in this instance, like when you don't have haunt, say haunt was used properly and then the opponent then addresses like now, okay, say you used haunt and you fought them at your own tower and it was a 3-for-3 trade, right? You know when they respawn and your haunt's not up again, they're going to try to go for objectives. So your immediate response would be to do what you're doing like right now as quickly as possible, right? And maybe you can actually prevent them from grouping up before your haunt comes up because you're doing this. Like you're just kind of playing this cat and mouse. While haunt's alive, I'm ready to counterplay whatever objectives they go for. While it's down, I'm trying to do anything I can indirectly to prevent them from going for objectives. So making sure we don't use haunt the way we did is it won't happen if we have this mindset, right? It's not going to happen if we think about the game objectively like this. I think this TP is really bad. So I guess the reason why like I think this TP is bad is they haven't like proven that they left. What I mean by that is like this Doom's walking at me, but for all I know, it could be Doom solo and 4 heroes top. Like I know we saw them walking away, but by TPing here, what if the opponent just does this? Like 2 heroes go here and 2 heroes go here.
I think they use meta for the tower.
But like I'm not talking about forcing an objective necessarily. I'm talking about just walking at you. Like, what if the Terrorblade starts to farm this jungle and the Bloodseeker, Grimstroke, Warlock just like walk at you?
I just like go back to base, I guess.
Yeah, you're literally
Try
just
to-
stuck in base, is what I'm saying. So like when I see this Doom, the way I look at it is you're gonna stay down here, and if Doom leaves, you push the lane. If he's still there, you're just jungling. So like I would much rather you be like around this area, and like the minute that they've completely displayed that they've like all separated, I'm like walking to this lane from here.
Okay.
And then what happens is if they run at me, I just resume. So the way I look at this is like I said this in the last session about the Medusa and the 2K game. You have like a home where they can't punish you. Like, okay, so if you're on the defensive, your home is like the split pushing area. So like what I mean by that is if you TP here and then they TP 4 heroes and run at you, is that bad for you?
No, it's not horrible.
No, because you're just walking away, but what are they doing?
They're stuck there.
Yeah, and you can just walk somewhere else and they all wasted their time, right? But if you're on the defensive, like you're this Spectre type hero, and you TP defensively when they haven't like committed anywhere, then if they just walk at you, they force you out of that area, but then you can't leave either because they are threatening that objective and you TP'd. So if you leave, you're going to be stuck. So like, you know, do you get what I'm saying here? So like,
Yeah.
when you're on the defensive, it's okay to TP places that are not their objective, as long as they're not threatening something, right? Like, but if you TP to somewhere that is their objective, then they can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, where they can pressure you out and pressure the objective, so you can't even leave. But yeah, so this is how I look at it. Like, this is your home, and you go here you only will walk here. The only time you're willing to TP here is if they're showing their 5-manning bottom, and you have haunt by the time they get to this tower, and you just want to immediately push out this lane. Like, that would be a fine time to like TP top, because you have like an immediate game plan about what they're doing. But remember how you said when you have haunt, you don't want the fight to come to you, right? So the last thing we should do with 24-second cooldown on haunt is TP to the place that the fight's likely to happen, because we're like not making use of the fact that we are a hero that can be anywhere on the map and show up to this fight, right? The fight's not going to happen here, right? It's never going to be here. So you're just like kind of wasting the potential of this skill by being on the part of the map that the fight is going to occur. And I feel like this Oracle or any of your other heroes could independently like do exactly what you're doing right here while you're just sitting here. And the emphasis is as the enemy team groups up here, what would your appropriate reaction be if you don't want to fight them?
I'd have to walk all the way bottom.
Like, the point is your reaction would want to be that you would split push bottom, right?
Yeah.
In this example, like you said, you would have to walk all the way
I
bottom. But if you're just like
that's really good.
sitting here, then you'll just keep
Yeah,
pushing.
I'm there in like 10 seconds.
Yes. And so that, like, I already said the part that goes into their objective taking and, like, how they can do two birds with one stone and threatening you out. But it also limits your decision. Like, remember last time I remember talking, I don't remember, like, the specific example, but the way you were playing on the map and, like, jungling camps and stuff was making it so your option was to jungle a camp or fight them. So you were forcing yourself into a lot of, like, awkward engagements. And it may not backfire this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if you find yourself in some awkward scenario where the enemy team tries to force an objective in the next 50 seconds, or like that they try to take like a skirmish or something around here, and you're just awkwardly there. Like that's the potential negative here. Because at the end of the day, with this decision, if the fight around here ends up being the right decision, you did nothing wrong. But if the fight is not the right decision, you just have no choice to either your choice is to either fight or do nothing. That's like your two choices. Or like you said, when I say do nothing, I mean you're walking all the way bottom and effectively accomplishing nothing. Okay, so if the opponent doesn't punish you, that's fine. But like we talked about last time, I'm assuming that you're just leaving them opportunities to punish you. I'm perfectly fine with you walking top and doing this exact thing. I'm being very clear. I'm perfectly fine for you to be on this side of the map. I just don't want you TPing here. Because that is punishable. So this TP, on the other hand, is fine. For all the reasons we've talked about. You TP here with Haunt, like, and you know the fights are going to happen elsewhere on the map, and you're clearing waves while that's happening. But that is not okay to walk there. Okay, it ends up being okay in terms you don't die, but like, I know you scanned, but they had just shown right here. So their two choices were to go this way, towards Roche or top, or to go this way. That's like their two choices. So whenever you
just like sat in those trees.
yeah, you should have sat on the right side trees, right? You should have just sat like over here.
Yeah.
And since you TP'd, you're kind of pinned. But at the same time, if they go here, then okay. Because if you hadn't TP'd here, they would have just gotten a free tower. So in this case, if you push out this lane, I think the actual best response... No, I'm actually going to take this back. I'm going to take this back about sitting in the trees. Right here, your team all died, right? And you TP'd to this tower in order to clear a wave, right? But isn't this tower like an immediate threat for the opponent? Meaning, like, couldn't they potentially take this tower with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, they'd be S4, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, they would team up and come here. So what you're actually doing is you're TPing while they're mid, and you're clearing a wave. That's actually what you're doing, right? And so when you're in the spot where all you're trying to do is buy time for your opponents, or your teammates to respawn, I think it's actually correct to push out this lane and back off this way. And the reason why you should do that is because if you push this lane out and back off this way, then what's going to happen is if they leave, you're going to clear this out and walk back. If they stay, you're like defending while your team's respawning. But if you stay around here and they just walk at you as 4, you're kind of doing the same thing you were doing top.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Where you're just like awkwardly forced into a fight again. So this is where you're defending the tower. This is fine to TP because you're just immediately clearing out this wave before they can get here. But now
like,
you have
I
to
can't walk down the lane.
Yeah, but if you walk down the lane and then they walk this way, you're leaving yourself with the choice to like try to cut the creeps. So if you end up doing that, maybe it's okay. But you're definitely not threatening anything on the map. But like if you walk this way and they do this, because you TP'd here, you bought like an extra 30 seconds before they get to the tower. And then by that time they get to the tower, maybe you've already pushed in mid lane to like right here. And then because you've pushed in mid lane to here, that gives you the information necessary to walk here. And then you can like threaten this tower. You like, I'm giving you a long progression of like, you know, it's always like a lot of different flow tree things that can happen here, or flow chart things. But by walking down the lane, I think you leave yourself with less options. If you walk down the lane and decide, like, with that, you're just going to cut the wave, sure. Like, that's fine. At the end of the day, like, even top-tier players, like, don't make these type of decisions correct. Because you're making it in the instance of the game. So if you walk down the lane, just know you've pretty much committed your time to defending that tower, and you're doing whatever you can to defend that tower. But I wouldn't want to do that, ideally. So now you're walking back top. This is fine. Always fine to walk here.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
To be clear, if they had grouped up and forced you out of this area and you had Haunt, it's perfectly fine to TP here. Just to be clear. Like, it's not like it's never okay to TP here. It's just that they have to force you to TP there. You know what I'm saying? That was like the emphasis I was trying to make with your TP to top. Okay, so now they're pushing. You don't quite have Radiance yet. So close.
Top tower
That point where I was walking top, the Oracle disarmed me. Took some quick creeps.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, that's just
Pretty
shit.
epic.
That's just shitty.
top tower.
I still don't think this game is over, but it's rough. I think in this game,
This game actually, we took a couple good fights, and then my team just smoked when I didn't have Haunt, and I didn't go with them
okay, yeah,
because
that's
I wanted Haunt.
okay. I'll
Very
watch
fucking
what
lost.
happens in that case, but it's something where like it might have just been your team, but it also might have been you. So I'll watch and see what happens. So they're grouping. You immediately run top.
Dire are scanning.
Okay, so classic plays against Spectre. They overextend, but they do have a pretty massive lead, but they feed. Okay, cool. Pretty standard Spectre shit. Game is now
We're
winnable.
back in the game.
Yeah, game is
It's
now
perfectly
winnable.
fine.
Yeah.
We killed them at Roche once, and then we win.
Okay, so let's see what happens here.
Radiant's bottom
Okay.
tower is under attack.
You see this. What should happen?
I walked back bottom.
You maybe clear this wave because you're waiting for this wave to get to the tower, but you should immediately walk back bottom, right? Why is this important?
Because he would like start their catch. Really.
Yeah, he's the hero
him
that
to
if
do.
I'm under tower would punish me for being under tower, right? Like Grimstroke is not gonna solo kill me. Like they're not gonna set up to kill himself. Like any of these other heroes, I can just like dagger into the trees, right?
Yeah.
So against this guy, I can't. But like, so this TP right here immediately tells me the guy that can kill me or threaten me from stopping this tower push, or threaten me if I tower push here, is not here. So I would clear this camp simply because this wave's like right here and you don't want to tank the tower as a Spectre. But like, immediately would run back to the lane rather than whatever this is, you know? Like, I noticed you start walking this way, so I immediately rewound. And guess what? Now they're able to send only a solo support to defend this tower. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but you'd be surprised how much happens if you just dagger this guy and run at him. Force
Yeah,
like
I'm
one
sure
or
they would all TP.
yeah, force at least 1 or 2 TPs, and then you just back off. And this is a situation where if they TP bottom, suddenly they represent no objective threat for the next.
And I have Haunt.
Yes, and then you'll have Haunt by the time anything
This
happens.
is smoke right here.
And notice how, yes, your team should not have done this, okay? But you also missed an opportunity to apply pressure when you could have, which might have prevented the opponent from actually being grouped right there. So I'm not saying that your team smoked and it's all your fault. I'm saying that there was something you could have done to make that better. And so I'm just calling out that, like, I always try to have the discipline to apply as much pressure as possible and always try to tell myself what is preventing me from applying pressure. So like in the earlier case where you TP'd from here to top, what I didn't like is that what you recognized is this Doom 1v1 is stronger than me. And since I know my team's not going to come to me, he's going to bully me out of lane. But what I'm thinking is, I want to force that Doom to continuously stay here, because he's on the dead lane, right? Like, he's in the dead lane not in the sense that he's threatened there, but in the sense that they're accomplishing nothing by sitting on the bottom half of the map, right? So, if every time he leaves the lane, I shove it back in, then he's going to be glued to being stuck down there. And then if he's glued to stuck down there, then he's like pushing a tower that's not going to get pushed. So you're effectively making him not threaten anything. But by leaving that one time where you TP, you're going to let this lane get pushed, and then the Doom's really only in this lane. If you're ahead, what's our relevance to this lane? Like, if you're a Radiant player and you're ahead, what's the relevance for this lane? Why do I care about this lane?
As a carry?
Like, any hero on the Radiant side, if we're ahead and we want to force objectives, what is the relevance of
You're
this
just, like,
lane?
pushing it out to buy time.
To buy time to allow us to take other objectives, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, by like TPing away from this lane, when all you could do is just make it so that if he's not there anymore, that lane's getting pushed into his tower, right? Like that's how I think about it. So in this case, it's the same idea where you're the Doom in this case against this Grimstroke, where it's the same thing as if that Doom was on the bottom half of the map and he lets you push the wave. That's really bad, right? Because suddenly the momentum of the
I just
wave.
completely lost what you were saying. I don't understand.
Okay, sorry. So say the Doom and you at the start of that point in the game, the 19-minute mark or whatever, were both bottom, meaning like he was in this area and you were in this area. He should never let you clear a wave, right?
Yeah.
Because he's stronger than you. But if he lets you clear a wave that you shouldn't be allowed to clear, he's surrendering a lot of map pressure, okay? So this example that I was telling you when you saw Bloodseeker TP top, I'm telling you, think about what heroes prevent you from applying map pressure. Like in the case against Doom, that's great. Now play this like cat and mouse game where you're forcing him to stay there, right? But in this case, by not applying the pressure, you're allowing heroes that shouldn't be able to relieve pressure to relieve it, which then leads to 4 people on their team being here.
I see.
Okay, so like that's what I'm trying to say is like always think about map pressure as like it's just like battle of tug of war. I want to push as many lanes as possible. Which heroes do I want? Am I like strong enough, or like what heroes are gonna bully me away from like this part of the map? What individual hero? What like combination of heroes? Like, and then I had one game where I was playing on Runes. I remember specifically getting flamed really hard for playing really passively on Spectre in a very similar spot where I let a Phoenix clear a wave that they shouldn't have been allowed to clear. And like a minute and a half later, they took Roche.
Because they pushed out that way.
And it was because he pushed out that wave. And none of them went bottom for like another minute and a half. And it seems like it's something you don't notice, right? In this game, sure, maybe your team should not have smoked. That's bad. But like there's just always a good opportunity that happens for the opponent team when you do this kind of stuff. So we're trying to avoid it as often as possible. And it's always about constantly asking yourself, who stops me from applying pressure? So I didn't mind that you were playing defensively there and then you saw them top and then you immediately, like you stayed near the tower. That was good. But at this point in the game, I think like 1 or 2 mess-ups is just going to lead to a loss. That's kind of the nature of Spectre, as well as in a game that like they have a pushing lineup, you're behind. I don't like this TP. Another like questionable TP. The minute somebody like Doom TP's bottom, that's a fine TP. But without seeing that information, you're doing the same thing as you did earlier, where there's literally no pressure on bottom. And now that you have Manta, I'd beg to differ that, like, imagine if... how do I word this? You're just surrendering pressure by TPing away from bottom. I'm not telling you you shouldn't be farming. I'm telling you you should be farming, like, here instead of here, right? That's all I'm telling you. Because your job to prevent objectives is still bottom. And so if they show you enough heroes to push you out of bottom, that is fine. Leave bottom. But don't leave bottom unforced. Like, you have to, on your own accord. You know what I'm saying? Did you follow me for that? Or
like it's gonna take more. It's gonna take more than them showing Doom TPing.
Either way, good content.
They hadn't TP'd bottom. Like, or like the Doom hadn't gone bottom. It's fine if you want to leave bottom the second you see Doom TP. Like, the second you see Doom TP here, I'm fine with you TPing here and pushing this out really quick. Because then what that does is, while he's bottom, you establish control of this area. If you think about it, mid lane establishes control of Roche, right? Because if this is pushed in, it's very difficult for the opponent to actually Roche, right? So, but at the same time, you shouldn't feel safe to TP here and push this lane if, like, all of them are missing. So, I don't want you to leave bottom, because the only way you can force them bottom is by being bottom. Doom was nice enough to go bottom without you forcing him to be there.
So, like, if I'm leaving this bottom area, I better be making an impactful play quickly.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. Exactly. Like, you're doing it, like, the times where you're TPing away from bottom is when you're instantly pushing a wave you feel that would normally be dangerous, but for whatever reason, they're showing you something that proves it's not. Or your team's, like, making a play really quickly. Like, you'll see players, like these active carry players that will TP to their own shrine because they see something like an immediate opportunity, like something like can punish, you know, and they'll do that. And then, like, the minute they're done doing whatever they're doing, 90% of the time they'll just end up walking, you know, back towards bottom. But like in these cases, if you've noticed, every time you've TP'd, nothing immediately happened. You just kind of TP'd. So we want to avoid those types of situations. And it's not always going to punish you. I'm just trying to show you the commonalities between times where, like, if you give the enemy team like 3 or 4 openings because of these things, they're going to take them. Like, and like they're going to hit one of them. Like they're gonna find one of them. We end up getting Roche, or trying to get Roche. Your team's not really helping you, and we just okay. Kind of a disaster. Don't have Haunt. I think everything was reasonable there. The problem with heroes like Spectre, and like why I struggled, is these types of decisions that I'm telling you are actually the sole reason you're going to lose games. Like, it's just the reality of heroes like Spectre, even PA, Anti-Mage, these types of heroes that don't really want to fight until like 2 or 3 items, and then once they get those items, they're like really strong, but up until that point, they're like pretty, you know, negligible impact on the game. So, if you just like if you give the opponent room to pressure your towers more than they should, it's going to make the game like really, really hard. And the thing is, if the game's not a straightforward game, meaning like you guys had a rough start or you're behind by 4K at 15 minutes or whatever, then you only have room for 1 or 2 mistakes before you're just going to lose. You are at like a high enough bracket where if the enemy team has a pretty straightforward push lineup timing and you're on this like, you know, Spectre timing, that you do have very little room for error to do that. So I'm just gonna keep focusing on that stuff. Do you have another game
Yeah.
to watch? And is it a Spectre game again, or?
No, I have a Ursa game from today.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna have a completely different change of pace here. Is there any
Yeah.
questions you have about like Spectre as a whole, or like anything we talked about in these cases?
Not that I can think of right now. Just
Okay.
a whole bunch of stuff.
Just remember, when you're trying to avoid fights happening, always be in this area unless they literally force you out of it.
You cut out for a second.
I just said always be in this. If you're trying to avoid fights, always be in this area. And then like wherever they're not making objective plays, you know, like away from them. And then if they force you out, that's fine. But if they're not forcing you out, you're making like a map surrendering play by leaving the area that they're not trying to get objectives. Because like you said, if it's not the area they're trying to get objectives, that's the area they're concerned about, just trying to push the lane out. And if the lane's pushed out, then they're allowed to make plays anywhere that they want. So that's why we're focused on the area of the map. Usually it's down here, right? There are some times where the opponent's like trying to play around here. In that case, we actually do this, but
But can you download this IM replay? It's kind of old.
if it's more than a week, I cannot download it, but I'll try. That should be too old. Yeah, it is by a day, sadly.
How's it TB1 actually? It's kind of like similar concepts, I guess. So.
It's gonna be close. Oh, barely. Okay. Yeah, this is 7 days, so that's close. Is this a loss?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I feel like TB is just one of those carries that's like really easy to play at like a mediocre level, but like really hard to play at like a master, like, you know, like mastering the hero. Okay. Like, there's a clear line in the professional scene against players that are like Terrorblade players and like carries that can play Terrorblade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I meant by
Just
that.
first pick at every game.
Yeah. Okay. So, gonna minimize Discord because I'm seeing like double out of the corner of my eye here. Nice, no pull camp against Bounty Hunter Mars.
Yeah.
This is
So
a
it's just
classic. Yeah.
This was like the worst fucking lane I played like all week.
Yeah, this is. I mean,
I'm pretty sure I end up just going jungle at level 3, and then the bounty follows me.
yeah. So we're gonna worry about things we can influence. Obviously, lane's pretty garbage. Misses the D ward. Classic. Boards, please buy sentries when you're against lanes that your carry can't occupy when it's away from their tower. Thank you.
Bottom tower is under attack.
Okay, so this lane's a fucking nightmare, and not much you can do about it, honestly. The question literally boils down to, like, if you can't occupy your lane outside of tower range, you actually should plead your support to buy a sentry. Like, before the game starts. Meaning, like, you should know you're not allowed to walk up in lane, so you know if the lane's, like, far up that you can't play it, and if that's the situation, you have to have a pull camp. If you don't have a pull camp and you slightly lose at all, you're actually gonna get crushed.
Yeah.
So that is something that you can prevent by virtue of, like, knowledge of the lane matchup. I'd say the most notable offlaner that creates that situation is Slardar, but, like, there are plenty of matchups where that is the case. Slardar is just like a hero where if you're like half health and the lane's like right here, you literally can't walk up because he'll just walk at you and kill you, right?
Yeah.
Dire's middle tower
Yeah, so far, like, your reactions have been appropriate, but, I mean, you have a fucking bounty hunter stealing your gold while you're jungling, so... What I would probably say is you should actually play near your Bristleback, not to make plays around him, but to make him be, like,
Dire's top tower.
defender for you. So, like, I would be jungling near the Bristleback, probably.
Like in the hard camp, small camp.
Yeah, just like down here. Like, doing the same thing you're doing, but just kind of near your Bristleback. In this kind of case where you're not independent, you're not trying to make plays, but you're kind of just going to put yourself near the strong guy for the sake of the fact that Bristleback would actually like a fight to come to him, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to go to Bristleback if he was like a split-pushing type hero, but he's like a wall type hero that wants... Like, he's never going to go to fights. He wants the fights to go to him. So if he's a hero like that, then it's perfectly fine if you use him as, like, a shield. Because what ends up happening is if they want to fuck with you, they have to fuck with him. And then they'll have to bring, like, 3 or 4 heroes. And then you can TP somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So that's...
Not about that.
Yeah, so that's, like, an option. I think what you're doing is, like, pretty reasonable. But, like... if you... In this case, I actually think your guys' best option would be to 4-man bottom around your Bristleback. With you in it. Not in the sense that you're 4-manning, like, to push the tower, but you're literally, like, Mirana's gonna play like this, Bristleback's in the lane, Shin or Rubik are sitting behind them, and then you're just jungling right here. And what that will do is, like, if they do what they did to Bristleback there, you'll actually, like, counterplay it, or at least back off, like, because there's 4 of you, and you'll be able to back off. You're just in a weird spot, because your safe lane was a complete catastrophe. And it's amazing how much pull camps have to do with catastrophes in the safe lane support players. Some lanes, the pull camps, like, aren't that important, but it's the situation I said that creates a really important safe lane pull camp. Yeah, so obviously using meta to farm is fine. We're still okay with what's happened in this game. You're only down by 1k. Your team is actually managing to create a decent amount of space for you to recover.
My Bristol is owning.
Yeah, so this ends up being fine. So, like, what I would have done was probably jungle near the Bristle, and then if a massive fight breaks out, I would have come to here. That's what I would have done. But, like, what you did wasn't terrible. It's just something to consider as an option, to have, like, one of your teammates make space for you by doing exactly what you would normally do near him. Okay, so, yep, defending tower with your illusion. It's pretty standard. I don't like the drums. So... I think drums are I'm a pace setter with these drums because I got them super early. I can actually participate in fights maybe without meta or, like, decently or more impactfully with meta. You're in a situation where because you had a bad start, with drums, do you want to fight?
No.
No, right? Like, you're actually just not fighting at all. Like, I'm in a Terrorblade situation where Arteezy would call it... where he's gonna smoke some cigarettes, like that's what he says, or whatever his fucking stupid terms are. He's like, I'm smoking cigs, boys. I don't know if you were around his stream when he had that phase or whatever, but he's just like every time he wants to farm for a long
Usually
time.
muted, but yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm smoking cigs, boys. And so, like, what that means,
for a long
what
time.
that means is, like, I'm getting 3 items before I fucking contribute to this game. And on a hero like Terrorblade, he's very momentum based because the nature of Sunder, right? You're either killable full to 0 or you're not. So if you're killable full to 0, you're fucking useless. Like, that's just how it is, right? Because you walk into the fight and you're gonna die. Do anybody on your team actually prevent you from dying?
No.
No, right? So you're in a situation where you are on farm mode. You are on like you smoking some cigs right now. So like by buying these drums, like you're just slowing down that timing. Like you should just be going Yasha, Manta, BKB or whatever. Like you should go the most efficient farming items into a BKB. That's what I would do because BKB is your fighting item, right? Like you are not fighting this game without a BKB. You are against Invoker, Willow. Like there is no way in fuck you are taking a fight without a BKB. So it's on you to buy all of these farming items that speed your farm up, and then you may ask BSJ, do I go Yasha BKB? Do I go Manta BKB? You know, what do I like? Do I go Manta Hurricane Pike BKB? Like, you know, where do I draw the line? And it's literally like, how soon do you have to fight? Meaning, like, when does your
How soon
team?
are they gonna take high ground?
Yeah, what are they gonna do? Like, what are the timings of the enemy team? Because they have an anti-mage, I would say you can go 2 or 3 items before, or at least a full Manta before, you go BKB, because the opponent's not gonna be, you know, immediately grouping up and
Yeah, they want their
forcing
A-
it down
A
your
half
throats.
seconds.
Right? If that anti-mage is maybe like a Jug or a Troll Warlord, you're probably going Yasha BKB, okay? Because, like, they might just shove your high ground at, you know, 15, 20 minutes into the game. But they have Invoker anti-mage, so they're going to be pretty slow-paced. So going like a fighting item when it's not a fighting game is, you know, just against the game plan. So pretty big deal there. It's just going to slow down your relevance of hitting that late game timing and, like, even just hitting that BKB. Okay, so...
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's middle tower has fallen.
Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's structure. Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's turret has been killed. Radiant's bottom tower.
Okay, fine with this.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Actually took that bottom tower, nice.
Radiant's
This game
top
didn't
tower
do
is
well
under
with this.
attack.
Even though the kills looked super obvious.
Radiant's top
I think this is insanity, by the way. What you're doing.
Radiant's top
So, this is how I look at it. So what did I talk about, like, in regards to you and Doom last game? Like, when you were in this similar situation. You recognize this spot, right? Like, where you were Spectre and it was the Doom?
Yeah.
And it's like, something's happening on the map and it's the two of you here. So,
Right, yeah.
when something's happening on the map and it's the two of you in this isolated environment, what's, like, the importance here?
I don't let the AM farm.
What did I said for Doom, who was stronger in the contesting, what was really bad for him to let you do?
Let me apply pressure. and push
What
it.
you clear a creep wave and apply pressure, right?
Yeah.
So when nothing's happening here, like, I understand killing this anti-mage is glorious or whatever, but how about we do this and he blinks away and his entire lane gets cleared and it's forced into his tier 3 while these guys walk this way? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what I'm basically trying to say here is you need to recognize the purpose of these types of scenarios is it is really important to clear the wave. So what if this anti-mage is like some Puck type hero or like a Zeus? What should you do here?
I would try to avoid him.
Okay, so where would you
I'm
go?
not seeing him in lane at all.
Where would you
I guess I
go
would-
right now when you see this?
I would see if the hard camp was up.
No, you fucking walk right here
Cut the wave.
and cut the wave. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because all that matters when this is happening and you're in a 1v1 vacuum is clearing the damn wave down here, right? That's all that matters. So
Just like canceling out what he would do bottom.
yes, exactly. So if you're stronger than him, you should more than cancel out what they do, right? Like you should prevent this and clear the wave. But if you're weaker than them, you should walk over here and cut it, right? Like you're either choosing to directly confront them or you're choosing to avoid them while accomplishing a lesser impactful version of the same thing. But the reason why it's a lesser impact is not because you're bad, but because you literally don't have the strength to do the stronger thing. So, like, all that came down to when you were Spectre was I was like, you shouldn't leave this area. You should avoid him and cut the wave. It's like, in this case, you should do exactly what you did here, but, like, by all means, let the guy fuck off. What is he doing? Like, where is he going? Like, what impactful thing is he doing after this, right? Like, maybe he's going to go cut this. That's, like, the most impactful thing he can do, right? Like, If he
Yes.
jungles and you push this lane, that's good.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, yes, the kill's nice or whatever, but you're not a kill hero. You're a split push pressuring hero. So, by all means, if you have a fucking Rubik waiting here to lift the guy, by all means, fucking meta and kill this guy. But you don't need meta to bully this guy, right? Like, you don't need that. So,
I guess like the impact difference between me just like telling him to fuck off and then cutting the wave and killing him is like not that big.
it isn't at all. And one of them has potential risks, and the other one doesn't. And, like, if you kill this guy, what does it allow you to do?
Nothing. I'm gonna push the wave. But
You're
I'm
gonna push the
gonna
wave.
do that
But if you don't kill
Wait,
the guy, what are you
All
gonna
it
do?
is just a little bit worse for him, I guess.
Yeah, it is a little bit worse, but, like, at the end of the day, the reason why you go for kills is because the kill allows you to do something you couldn't previously do.
Yeah.
That's actually why you'd go for kills at the grand scheme of it. Like, yeah, it's a little more complicated than that in the terms of, like, actually addressing exactly what that is and all that kind of shit. But, like, you go for kills to help you. Like, the reason why you would kill a guy in this scenario, like if it's a Puck or a Zeus or something, you would call for a rotation, is because if that guy's alive, you can't actually pressure this lane, and you can't allow that guy to single-handedly defend the lane while the other 4 people run around the map killing people, right? So that's when you call for a rotation, because you're like, this lane needs to be pressured, we can't allow this guy to single-handedly defend it, and he needs to fucking die, right? Like, that's why, like, when I'll call for those types of plays. But in this case, the reason why Terrorblade's an anti-mage counter generally is, like, yeah, in team fights it's nice, but in the fact is they're both split pushers, and one of them bullies the other guy. So that guy's favored. That's naturally the case in all split pushing matchups. Like, most split pushing matchups are, like, why is PL countered by Ember? Because when they both split push, PL can't do anything to Ember, so if Ember shows up in his lane, Ember, like, PL's supposed to just leave, right? But if PL sticks around, Ember with a +1 can probably kill him. So they're both split pushers. One guy threatens the other. It's like, Anti-Mage is never going to try to kill you here. Like, he's never going to call for a rotation to kill the Terrorblade, right? Like, that's just not going to happen. If they try to kill you, is Anti-Mage going to be a part of it?
No.
No, he's going to be somewhere else while the opponent, like, smoke ganged you bottom. Like, he's going to be top. Like, the fact that this guy's here is just bad. He should never be on the part of the map that you're supposed to be on. That's just bad. He should probably be top, cutting the waves behind the Bristleback. That's what, if I was Anti-Mage, I would be doing. Would be cutting the waves top to prevent this Bristleback from applying any pressure. Because I'm thinking to myself, I'm the anti-mage, I'm a split pusher trying to relieve pressure. I'm going to try to relieve pressure on the enemy team against the guy who's going to create it. And it's actually Bristleback. Even though you're a Terrorblade, you had like a weak start. Bristleback's the kind of like wall type hero that's like walking down lanes. And so I know a good anti-mage player would be like cutting top wave right now. Like that's what they would be doing. Okay. So they'd be cutting top wave and then be ready to like TB bottom in a response to, defend the tier 3 or whatever. Okay, so...
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower
And now it just leads to a massive waste of your time. And guess what? The wave didn't get pushed.
Steve.
That's why if you're in a strong 1v1 scenario, meaning like you're stronger than the other guy, force him to leave. If you're weaker than the other guy, force them to bring more heroes to actually get rid of you. Meaning like, usually the guy can't single-handedly push the wave and bully you away, right? Like that's actually really hard. Like not many heroes are strong enough to push this lane and like stop you from cutting it. And at least as Terrorblade, you can use like an illusion to cut it. So okay, we forced a lot of heroes bottom. I don't hate this TP, but I hate the fact that you're jungling. Like, you have time to clear this wave with your actual hero, do it. Don't be efficient like this shit. Clear the wave. You forced 4 heroes bottom, they have like 20 seconds gonna take them to get here. Spend that 20 seconds clearing this damn wave so they show up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sense of urgency. So, like, whenever you're forcing reactions like that and then TPing, like, clear this wave. By the time you would have already cleared it, notice how you're forced to back off. Like, that's because they had time to get there now. So, like, usually if you miss those opportunities, it's already too late.
It like becomes a bad TP when I don't do that.
Yes. Exactly, yes. That is true.
Dire's middle
It's
tower
just
is under Dire's
an overall... It looks to me, based on what I remember, that you've gotten better at this. Like, you're definitely taking into account when the opponent groups up. But now it's the micro transactions around the map. Not interactions? I don't know. Like the 1v1 things. Like the things that are... So I think you're doing a better job of like seeing the opponent grouping up and addressing it. But now we got to factor in our matchups when it comes to like split pushing, who we're avoiding, who we're confronting, what we're gonna do about them if they are stopping us from doing what we want to do. Is it direct? Is it indirect? How do we, like, we know we want to be bottom. What's the best way to go about getting there? Is it by like forcing them top and then TPing? Is it by rotating 4 heroes? Like, what are our options? So it's just like, when I saw the Spectre game, you ran away from the Doom when you could have just cut waves. In this game, you like chased after an anti-mage when you could have just cleared the wave. If you see these players in the top bracket, like, all they care about is getting that wave pushed. Like, that's all they care about. And the time they go for kills is when that kill is necessary to get that wave pushed. Like, that's when they smoke and kill that guy. And the reason why they'll smoke into their own jungle and kill, like, the Terrorblade who's aggressively split pushing is because if they don't kill the guy aggressively split pushing, they can't go for objectives. So that's like why they're killing you. So just note that. Like, don't go for play. Like, if you see 3 mid, that's like an invitation to walk at this anti-mage and just push Q and make him blink away, right? Like, that's an invitation to do that. Another TP I don't like, right? Same idea as before. There's no reason to leave bottom. Just chill. Like, back off as far as you think you need to go, but chill, right? Like, stay bottom.
Bad TP now for sure.
Yeah, you're seeing it now, right? Like, the repeated like, it's usually the same mistakes. Like, it's just obviously a little bit different situation every time, but this lane is pushed out to here instead of right here.
If I stayed bottom, it's never going past like where the tier 2 was.
Yes, exactly. It's never going past that area. And if it goes past that area, it's because they bring like 3 or 4 heroes, in which case you're allowed to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so all of this is about applying the appropriate amount of map pressure that's within our capabilities. So when we were talking about it with Spectre, you know, that map pressure was less, but you still missed opportunities. In this case, it's actually a lot of map pressure you are missing, because Terrorblade is one of the most powerful split-pushing pressure heroes in the entire game. So we TP top to address, like, a dive, kind of like another awkward meta. Wouldn't we just love for this pair of drums to be the rest of our Manta instead of drums? Okay. If you're cutting a wave with an illusion, you should never go to that wave. Like, if you're cutting a wave that's preventing them from pushing, do not follow that illusion. Because, like, if they don't deal with the illusion, it's going to clear it. And if they do deal with it, your hero should not be there. So, let me rewind exactly, because I'll give you, like, a pretty laid out what you should be doing here. So, we're pushing in mid. We run bottom after having already surrendered some pressure. Notice how you're then forced into an awkward engagement top because the pressure you're applying bottom is like 15-20 seconds slower. Imagine if this pressure was 15-20 seconds faster based on their decision to do anything top, right? And then you see this. You see Anti-Mage, you see Dark Willow, and you see Mars. You should be lingering bottom like this. Good. Force Invoker here. Okay, good. Okay, I was going a little too fast to, like, analyze these things, so let me... Okay, so we're seeing a dive top. Okay. This is awkward. I think this TP is, like, okay, but the point of the TP is not to fight them, but to get Ladens pushed out again. So what I would be doing is, like, TP'd here, if just in case, like, some catch happens here, but then, like, see this and immediately run mid. Like, that's what I would have done here. Because your point of TPing is to, like, because you weren't pressuring here and they were pressuring, right? So your meta's, like, almost over. You're not exactly looking to fight. You don't have your BKB yet. So we're not trying to force a fight. We're simply trying, like, we didn't feel like we were accomplishing anything here. So our 2 choices are to linger here and leave an illusion every time they leave, or to TP back, clear these waves, and return here as quickly as possible. That's like our... Go ahead.
Couldn't staying bottom there be, like, the better choice? Can't my teammates push these waves? Can't, like, that be a valid argument?
That's why I'm saying that those are the 2 reasons you would TP here. Meaning, or the 2 things you could do here. Meaning you could stay bottom and leave illusions, or you can TP back to clear waves. But either way, your decision is guided by the fact that you're not trying to fight, you're simply trying to clear waves. So if you do one or the other, at the end of the day, I would have stayed bottom, personally.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
but if you do TP here, you should see this immediately run mid and then return to bottom ASAP. That's like, but it's with the mindset that all you're caring about is wave and map pressure. That's all you're caring about right now because you're not actually trying to fight. When you're not trying to fight, you're doing wave and map pressure in order to avoid fighting. When you're trying to fight, you're doing wave and map pressure to allow you to get a good time to fight, right? So, like, you're always trying to map pressure no matter what. But when you're actually looking for fights, you get map pressure in the sense that you did what, like I was talking about last game, where you relieve like 30 seconds of pressure on your own safe lane, and then you make a play happen, right? Like, that's what you're doing, is you're relieving, you're basically taking care of the lanes, and then you're fighting. So, like, you have to take care of the lanes first, and then you go fight. So, like, in this case, like you said, it would have been perfectly fine for you to TP bottom. And I think you would be, or sorry, stay bottom. I think, what I've noticed in your bracket is players are not adamant about the pressure they can apply in one lane. And like the analogy I use is, would you rather me poke you everywhere on your body or punch you in the face?
poke.
Yeah, right? So like it's the same. I know it may be like a weird analogy, but like it doesn't do much to gently pressure every lane on the map. Like that doesn't do anything. It is like crazy pressure if you're just making it so they have this, like, they're constantly worried about bottom, right? Like if they're constantly worried about one area, like that is very annoying for them to deal with. So like
They'll make more mistakes too.
yeah, they will. Oh, absolutely. They make all kinds of mistakes. Like when I'm playing like in these like 6K, 5K games, like where I get like the really low average, it's me doing this and like randomly watching like 3 heroes walk through wards like trying to gank me, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like what? And like sometimes I get lazy and fucking feed like an idiot, but like it's just funny because they do look, they just look out of comfort zone. And so like what happens is when you play like a tier 2 team against a tier 1 team just makes these decisions quickly, and the tier 2 team looks really stupid because they're not making their split pushing decisions as quickly as the other team, and then all the lanes are at their towers and like, shit, we have to fight, and then they randomly feed. It's like, if you're a tier 2 player, even if you're top 100 in the world, you're gonna look really bad playing against a team better than you. Like that's just how Dota is in a nutshell. So it's definitely, I would say, in my experience, in your bracket, you'll probably be able to make up for the mistakes that you have made here. But what I've realized in the top, like if we're talking like you're trying to get to like 7.5, 8K, if you do this surrendering of map pressure one time, you're probably going to lose the game. So like, yes, you don't have to be like perfectly efficient, meaning like, yeah, maybe you could have cut an extra wave here or there, maybe you could have, 10 more CS or whatever. But when you TP to the wrong part of the map and set it up for like a minute and a half where you're just being like, you're still farming, but like you're not actually applying pressure at like the highest bracket, you actually just lost the fucking game. Like that's actually just how it works. Like if I'm playing against a carry that's like a top tier carry player, if I do that once, I lose the game. And the reason why is because the only way to get it back is by them messing up, and they don't. So you just lose. In this type of game, you're able to recover only by the virtue of the opponent allowing you to map pressure more than you should be able to. At this point in the game, you're fucking lost. Like, you're down 20k. But like, meaning at like 17 minutes when you let that anti-mage get that pressure bottom, in a top level game, I guarantee you, if I were to go through a replay with my team, they would look at me, see that, and say, this made the game really hard. Like, it's just how it is, because it's like a whole momentum swing. And that seems like a lot of weight to be on a carry player's shoulders, but at the end of the day, the higher you go, it's just ruthless. Like, it's just brutal in terms of the level of execution that you have to have. So the emphasis I make to you is when you're playing these split push type heroes, really think about bottom. If you're dire, think about bottom as like your home, and they have to force you away from it. And if they're not bringing enough to force you away from it, and what I mean by not bringing enough is that the heroes that are not bottom, you don't want to interact with, meaning like you don't know where they are necessarily, but like if they don't have, like if they have 4 heroes that are off map and you TP away from bottom, they're just going to walk at you, right? Like, so you have to force the heroes you don't want to deal with to be bottom. Otherwise, you should never be anywhere else, right? Like that's what I'm like
Yeah, that makes sense.
basically getting at. So if you have that adamant, like that why I say that's like the rule, and then there's exceptions. It's like there are games where it's correct for their really strong heroes to play here. Okay, so in those types of games, if you're realizing I want to be bottom, but this is the hero that's playing there, I can't play there anyways, then by all means, don't play bottom. But you should need a reason to not play bottom. And that's the big emphasis. And if anything, when you see like the Spectre game where you're against the Doom, I don't care if you feed once or twice randomly per game while you're in the midst of learning this. Try to get more creative, like cutting waves and doing random shit on the bottom half of the map that's like
Just being more annoying.
yeah, just to annoy the guy. Annoy the guy that's like stronger than you. Like if you were the anti-mage against the Bristle, you would be annoying by cutting this wave when he's top, right? Like that's annoying. And that's like, but you can't touch the Bristle. And like as a Spectre that other game, you couldn't touch that Doom, but you can make what he's doing harder, you know? So like rather than TPing away, even if it leads to you feeding a couple times per game or whatever, I want you to really push those limits of what I'm allowed to get away with, and you'll just see them do some really random shit sometimes. Like that's what I've realized. Is like people just do some really random shit. Sometimes it actually works, meaning like you're not ready for it, and it's just like, whoa, okay, that's something to learn from. But like a lot of the time, they just look stupid. Like you're like, what are they doing here? Really important. I think we have time for like either a couple questions or like a brief look at another game. I've got another
Can we
session
take
in
a
about
brief-
10 minutes. So
Brief look at the Ursa game.
okay, yeah, brief look at the Ursa game. Let's go. I never updated my title to have your information, but either way. Okay. Oh, the classic. Oh, no, you won this game. Okay. I was about to say the classic 10-2 loss on Ursa. Those are my favorites whenever I go like 20-2 on Ursa. And the funny thing is, I know I lost my team in the game. Okay. Even though I was like 20-2. Okay, so Ursa. Quick discussion about the mid game. Want to give me the best description of mid game Ursa that you can think of?
30 seconds to battle.
Just running at them.
Okay. What do they do in response? Generally.
Either dodge me or feed.
Okay. Okay. Exactly. That should guide a lot of your decision making in the mid game.
It did in this game. I actually played really passive.
Okay.
But I feel like I've just been playing these like Battle Fury split pushers for a long time. I'm starting to play like Lycans and Ursas again.
Okay.
And
It's definitely a drastic change.
when I go like AFK, it's really bad.
Yes.
Like, much worse.
Yeah, it's just I always ask the question I asked in the other game: if nothing's happening, who's benefiting? And that's a really important question to ask yourself in any game as a carry player. Because if you're not benefiting from it, then you have to answer the question of what the fuck do I do about it, right? So
First blood. Now who wants to be second?
another classic example of no pull camp. Gotta love these types of games. So even though you're like decently farming, it's not actually a good lane for you.
Yeah, we started aggro bottom because I didn't want my Darkseer to lane versus the Jug. I know I have a good matchup versus Jug. So we went aggro and then he TP'd top and just fought.
So who was it? Mars?
It was Mars versus
I personally think in this scenario I would have rather just safe laned and let the Darkseer go bottom, but I don't hate it. I guess if your team played it better, it'd be fine either way. So I'm not gonna worry about this call. I think it's pretty close. Like that's something you that can like I might not even be right. So. I've seen this Drums Ursa build a couple times in these pro matches. I think Drums Ursa is fucking trash.
You're
Like,
super fast.
I know you're
There's a
super
lot of
fucking
mana,
fast.
too.
I've gone drums on Ursa. I've played enough games of Ursa to try pretty much everything.
A lot of people have like first like when they started doing it a couple days ago, they were not getting blink at all. But now I see some people getting blink as like a third, fourth item.
Yeah.
And this game I got it versus like Ember, but I got it much later. I got it after BKB and Basher.
Yeah. I guess like I just think to myself like how valuable is move speed this particular game, and like against an Ember I don't think move speed does anything. I'll see how it plays out. I saw Navi's carry do it, and I just thought it was like an absolutely trash Drums Ursa game. And so like the reason I don't like Drums is because usually I find myself running at people and they just avoid me. So like, what's the point of running faster? Because they just avoid me. So I'd rather buy items that either like make me incredibly impactful or like make me not ignorable, like Vlad's or something, so I can like force Roche or I can kill towers because I'm not, you know, if they don't interfere with me, I'm killing their buildings. So like that's how I look at drums, but like, you know, I've seen multiple people do it, so I don't want to just like immediately, you know, discount it. But like, as someone who's played a lot of Ursa, maybe I'm just stuck in my ways or some shit. But like, I'm not a fan of the concept of drums. But let's see how it plays out. So you have Invoker Darkseer. I feel like in this game I would be perfectly fine if you wanted to go like Windlace, but not drum. I don't know, man. Yeah, I've seen people go like drums BKB, and I could see that being okay here. Man, drums are weird. Okay, I'm gonna keep watching the game. I think this rotation is fine. Your lane obviously wasn't great, but like in this case, I always think to myself, I'd just rather have a Vlad's, but I guess you maybe wouldn't have gotten that kill. Yeah, so when you're Ursa against Pudge Ember, you just can't do this, basically. Maybe you're a little...
These are my like classic deaths that I've been having, where I rotate here and then they just like bring their mid hero plus a support.
Yeah, so I'm gonna rewind to the setup of this because you need to understand that the decision to do this dive needs to be made before you do it. So like, meaning like it needs to be made now. So like, let's see the situation that goes into these plays. So you did go bottom, and
Top tower is under attack. Are scanning. Dire's top tower is under Radiant's bottom tower.
kill this guy in his own jungle. Okay. So now we see an Ember top who has a TP, but you know, he's used Flame Guard. We see Jug. Or we actually don't see him right now. He didn't check anything, by the way. So we see this guy. So the difference between last time and now is you've been here for a long period of time. So they're now, I guarantee you, this guy knows this is a possibility at this point. Like, yeah, last time they saw you running at him or whatever, but last time when you were running at him, it's to the point where they have to react to you running at him, and like if they react, you just run away from him. So in this case, like they know you're at the tower and he's TPing into you. So now they're ready to fight you, and you don't have ult, which is like a big deal. And so all I'm looking at in this case is if he TP's bottom, what does that mean for mid lane?
It can get pushed.
There's no fucking Mars in mid lane. So rather than diving the guy that TP'd bottom that has like a defensive ultimate, meaning like in the sense that he can like crowd control you here, if you force a TP to bottom lane like this, that actually opens up you like walking towards mid lane. Your two choices are to walk towards mid lane or to like farm around here and have them reveal that this guy is not safe to be here. Like, so that's your two choices. So one of them is the more aggressive play, and the other one is the like wait for the opportunity, you know, kind of like, you know, sitting in the shadows waiting for it to see if the opportunity arises. So this is just a situation where I don't know what else to say other than it's just incredibly telegraphed. Like, you've literally been in the bottom lane for like a minute and a half, and if some guy's TPing in front of your face, let's try not to assume he's just a retard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's like a single-handed support and they showing 4 heroes top going on your teammate, you know what I mean? Then don't make that play. So I'm fine that you want to play bottom, but I think after TPing the Mars bottom, I would actually almost like to run at this Jug top, potentially, especially when the Ember TP'd top. Like, I wouldn't even mind when they TP'd bottom and killed you and then you respawned, that you, like, walk at top right now. Like, I'm not saying to TP top, because that's really bad. But if you walk top and force the Jug away from top, or force multiple heroes top, then suddenly you're going to have a favorable engagement bottom. I feel like what you're doing right now is basically, like, ramming your head into a wall.
Yeah.
By TPing bottom. So, like, Ursa's a hero that, yeah, he, generally speaking, people run from him, but he doesn't want 4v4s. Like, he wants, like, 2v2s and 1v2s and, you know, that kind of stuff. So, if you walk at this Jug, his response is to either get help, which TP'd bottom, or to leave, right? So then suddenly either somebody else is going to have to come top to address you, in which case you can go to bottom where they aren't anymore, or you can just push the top tower. And so that's leaving them with this awkward decision. But now in this case, you forced them bottom as a sense of, like, being the strong hero that they've reacted to, and then you're just TPing back into them. Like, that's all you're really doing. And even if it works out, it's like, it's just a statistically, like, lower option than to do what I said, where you just, like, force them around the map. So you don't TP top, right? Because if you TP top, then Jug just TP's bottom and he's happy.
It's like much more punishing if I would just walk top.
Yeah, exactly. And you're fast, so just walk top. And, like, all of this could be happening after having done what I said to go top. So now you're in this awkward spot where, like, I think going Blink this game is, like, super important because your team actually just does not kill Ember, and you're pretty much the only one that will. And the only way you can is going Blink Basher. So I understand if other people are going drums, and I think in some games drums may be okay. Like, I'm going to give it that validity, that, like, maybe it's, like, a reasonable item. But, like, I look at their team and I say they have a split pushing Ember that's going to pressure, and it's going to make it really hard for us to get, like, the fights we want, because he's going to split push better than our team. And I am literally the only source of killing him. So, and the only time I can kill him is Blink Basher. So I think any item that's done before Blink Basher has to be, like, really important. So, like, Vlad's for Roche, or, like, if you want to go Midas because you're just going to hit creeps for a little bit longer or something. I personally think, like, I just think the drums is delaying it more than it has to, and it doesn't make you kill Ember, who can still counterplay you. Like, that guy can fuck with your game. I don't think this is, like, a free Ursa game. Like, if they have light stuns, and I know with drums I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want, then maybe drums is actually pretty good, because it enables you to do whatever the fuck you want while running faster, while doing whatever the fuck you want. But, like, in this case, Ember can counterplay you. Like, Ember is a pretty hard counter to Ursa in, like, the mid game and super late game. It's kind of a matchup where Ember gets shit on you in the laning stage. Like, you shit on him in the laning stage. He shits on you in the mid game. You hit this timing where you have Blink Basher and he's really scared. And then late game, he survives against your Blink Basher and he fucks you. Like, that's the dynamic of the Ember Spirit Ursa matchup. So you're still just playing bottom. And I feel like you're playing this like a split pusher where...
Yeah, for sure.
You are just farming, and I think a lot of... Say it again?
This is where I felt super awkward. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I'm, like, in the moment of the game, so
Yeah, I really do think it's actually just itemization, because you want to apply pressure, and I don't think with your items you can threaten Roche, and I don't think you can threaten towers, because there's one guy that single-handedly can contest you with no assistance. And so that actually makes it so you have nothing to do on the map. So it's like, if you have Vlad's or you have Blink Basher, then suddenly you're like a massive threat to anyone on their team that is alone. But if you have these items, you're kind of like meant to be a hero that like runs at them. But they actually, like, if they have a hero that doesn't die to you running at it, then you're not actually creating any pressure by being able to run at them. So notice how, like, you actually just feel helpless. That's how I have to imagine you feel right now. You're like, I don't want to hit creeps, but what else am I supposed to do right now? Like, I'm pretty sure that's what you're thinking, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's about, like, I can't kill towers, I can't Rosh, I can't kill heroes. Like, the guy that, like, see how, like, the problem here is that Ember Spirit's single-handedly occupying the part of the map that you, like, want to control, and you can't do anything about it. And that's, like, foresight. You should know that's gonna happen. Like, if you want to control a part of the map as a specific hero, and there's one hero that can stop you, and you're, like, this kill-type hero, you need to fucking build the items to kill that guy. Like, that's how I look at it. So I don't want to completely discount drums, you know, don't be scared to build drums in the future, but, like, it's imagining, like, how the mid-game's gonna play. So, like, if I want to apply pressure, and there's a hero that stops me from applying pressure, then I either need to build to kill them, or, like, I need to look to have somebody on my team that can kill them. And if we don't have that situation, that was just a bad draft. Like, that was just bad. You shouldn't pick that hero in that circumstance. So in this spot, we're going to wrap it up about here, but I don't really have much else to say other than when I look at this game and I see your items and I see your play, I don't know, I don't think you had any idea how you were supposed to win this game. Meaning, like, you're winning, meaning, like, you end up winning the game, but I feel like your hero itself is, like, just an Ursa in this game. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel
No, I
like...
do.
It feels like you could have been any hero doing anything in this game, and you would have won.
Yeah.
And so, like, if this was a game where maybe your mid lane went a little rougher, or, you know, whatever, I think you definitely lose. And there's games like that for everybody.
agree.
Like, there's games that I've had where I'm like, I don't feel like I could have fucked up this game no matter what I did. So, I think it just boils down to having, like, a very clear-cut plan on heroes like Ursa, because it just doesn't work on these, like, on split pushers. All you have to think about is, like, how am I making sure I pressure lanes. But on, like, heroes like Ursa, you have to have, like, a very clear-cut, like, this is what I want to do from 8 to 10, 12 minutes. Because you're, like, setting the pace of the game, but you're also not an objective taker. So it's kind of like this weird type of hero where you kill people, but what happens if they avoid you? Or what happens if they want to fight you? Or, like, you know, you have to, like, be very methodical with how you plan out the game. So, like I said, I think it's preemptively addressing the problem. So, like, I think early game, you kind of just have free reign. Like, you have all good lane matchups, and you should, like, kind of just do your thing in the first 8 to 10 minutes. But then once Ember starts rotating, he's, like, a problem for you, and that's something you need to know. So what I would probably be doing myself is, like, I would either go Midas or Vlad's, in the sense that, like, I know I'm going to be chilling. I'm going to be, like, just farming and sustaining and avoiding the Ember. And then the minute I get Bash or Blink, I'm, like, trying to kill this Ember. But, like, any play I'm making on the map is pretty much dictated by what Ember's doing. So, like, if Ember reveals an opportunity for me, I'm going to make use of that. But unless Ember actually does something on the map that allows me to make a play, then I'm just not going to make a play. Like, that's kind of how I am thinking about it. Like, I think in the 10-minute mark, you can actually run at an Ember in his lane. Meaning, like, if he's, like, trying to defend his own safe lane, like, out here, you can actually just, like, run at him, right? You're not going to kill him, but, like, you can be the one that pushes, you can stop him from pushing it, right? But, like, at the later stages of the mid-game, like 15, 20 minutes, he's going to have, like, a lot of kill threat on you if you do that kind of stuff. So by that point in the game, you actually have to be able to fucking kill him, right? So, like, that's how I kind of envision this game plan. And I think at this point, like, you have a lot of split pushers. So the reason why I'm kind of, like, digging Midas is because I have a lot of split pushers on my team, and I can kind of just, like, ramp up my own game by making that timing of, like, Blink Basher just faster. But I also don't want to go, like, naked Blink Basher, so I just throw the Midas in there. Aside from that, I don't really have much else to say about this game. Do you have any final questions for this session? I feel like we talked about a lot.
Not really. Well, I guess if you could give me some, like, pinpoints that I could write down for things to work on.
I think the major thing is having the clear-cut plan of what you're doing in the game. This happened in the Terrorblade game, it happened in this Ursa game. In the Terrorblade game, you were, like, recovering and you build drums, right? Like, know that you're not going to be impactful in the game. I think you're having a hard time recognizing games where you're a hard time accepting games where you're just not going to be able to do anything for, like, a long time. And then when you're in that spot, first off, like the right items, but secondly, have that adamant think about what the opponent's objectives are and have that guide your haunt decisions, have that guide your like split pushing decisions, like thinking about, you know, knowing when they are pressuring the map who you're trying to avoid and like who you're trying to follow. Is there a hero on their team that want, like if you're the Ember and you're against PL, you should be following that guy everywhere, right? Because you both split push. But if you're an Ember and you're shutting down the PL while you're split pushing, you're actually like twice as impactful. So like if you're that Terrorblade, you're running at that anti-mage every time you see him alone, right? And instead of doing it to try to kill him, you're doing it with that mindset of I'm just out split pushing this guy and I'm gonna force them to help this guy split push. So I think like your emphasis on lanes and your adamant like nature to force the lanes that need to be forced just needs to go up, and that'll be a big impact for you. I think those are like the major points I'm looking at. Is there anything that you feel like I missed or any questions you have before we call it?
No.
Cool,
That's
man.
all.
Right on. Thanks for signing up again, and best of luck in continuing your climb, dude.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, see ya. Okay, we got one. Oh, I might have. I mean, I need a break anyway, but. You guys are... God damn, your chat is fucked. That guy needs to get banned. So summarize the past 10 minutes. Don't play Ursa? What? Oh, does Auto Chess have its own category now? Somebody said it has its own category. I don't see any chess streamers. Oh, it actually does have its own category. Where is it? Oh, Auto Chess. Okay, that's cool. Cool, I didn't know that. Follow it. No picture? Yeah. Looks like